Good evening and welcome to the Canadian Orthodox Monastery of All Saints of North America. This evening we're recording in St. Axel's Press in the print shop, and I'll try to move the camera around a bit so that you can see more of the publishing house. Every evening, just before I begin my evening cell prayer rule, I take a tablespoon of baking soda and sprinkle in the basin in my washroom, and with a sponge clean it and polish it, and it comes out quite beautifully. I use it on all the porcelain, a little more on the shower, and get them immaculately clean with very little effort. I've mentioned this to a number of people, and most of the time I'm told, well, I don't have time for that. I use this very strong, powerful spray stuff to put on there and clean it. It's more convenient. I wanted to speak a little bit this evening about the idolatry of convenience and about what it can actually lead to, because it is an idolatry. People use these intense, powerful chemical sprays to clean in the bathroom, in the kitchen, and they'll very often justify it by saying that, well, they want to kill all the germs. But what's actually happening is that a lot of very strong chemicals are being poured into the environment, and particularly into the groundwater, when we use these chemicals. The other thing that happens is you kill off the weak bacteria, but there's always a residue, a holdout of the stronger ones, so you end up producing superbugs, superbacteria, which can resist whatever you put against them. And this has a way of multiplying itself and spreading. Now, this environmental damage, not only to the groundwater, but also to your lungs. Some of these chemicals are carcinogenic, but people will sacrifice even their health to the idea of convenience. How far can this go? I was a little shocked and distressed to read in one of my science magazines about an experimental supermarket in which all of the merchandise is tagged with tiny microchip, fairly cheap now microchips, and the consumer can carry a card, a bank card with a microchip on it, or he can have a microchip implanted in the earlobe, in his thumb, in his forehead. Nobody would ever notice it. You can have a high-priced hearing aid implanted behind your ear too, and no one notices it. And you can walk out, you can load up your shopping cart, stroll out of the supermarket between two microchip readers, and it'll read the microchip on everything in your shopping cart and your own personal microchip, which has a great deal of information on it. Those of you who have used bank cards are aware that criminal elements can have a very, very small magnetic device. When they run their own card through the card reader, they pick it up and secretly snap this device onto the bottom of the card reader, and they can, with that, record all the information from every debit card that is used on that machine. We had a great deal of problem with that here in British Columbia, but even at the Vancouver International Airport this was taking place. Well, we've also been told, you know, when we Canadians go to America, we have to have a passport. But we've been told that we can purchase a special driving license, which has a microchip on it, which has sufficient information that we can cross the border without a passport. Now, this microchip will also contain any kind of criminal record that you may have had, any kind of serious medical problems, all kinds of details that you don't necessarily want to spread around. When you drive through the American Customs and Immigration as a reader that can read this microchip from a distance and record all this information into it and let you pass across the border. Of course, it wouldn't take long before criminal elements develop their own microchip reader, and they can read, if you have an implanted microchip, they can read it. They'll also be able to read your debit card with the microchip from a distance, and your driving license with the microchip, and all that information. So criminal elements will certainly pick up all this information to use. Not only that, but with those microchips, every movement you make can be recorded. You can be tracked anywhere at any time, under any circumstances, by government agencies, or ultimately by whatever criminals might have an interest in it. When we had, for some time, what we call a barcode cult. People thought, oh, the barcode is definitely the mark of the beast. And they even had this mythology that all barcodes secretly started with 666. And barcodes actually were developed at the end of the 50s. A lot of people think they're fairly new, but the first major use of barcodes was in tracking railway cars through railway yards. And the barcodes had to be very, very large for this reader to catch them and read them. And it was a bit faulty at first. The barcodes, then some people within the Pentecostal church in the early 1980s, late 1970s, began to assert that the barcode was the mark of the beast. And this was picked up from the Pentecostalists and brought into the Orthodox Church by some people. Then when barcodes were placed on your European Union border transit cards, a lot of people went berserk about it. And whole cults were formed around this anti-barcode movement. But most of us who deal in the sciences at all, or technology, realized that barcodes were transitory, they were only temporary, that there would be electronic means for doing this sort of thing much easier, much more efficiently, much more conveniently. And of course the microchip came along and did that. Now the microchip, never mind whether it's the mark of the beast, have it implanted in your forehead, it may very well be, but it compromises you so much and makes it so easy for government agencies and others, as I said, criminal elements even, to track your every move and know where you are at all times. That I can't see why people would want to give up that much privacy simply for the sake of convenience. But people will. They'll want the, oh my goodness, I won't have to stand in line at the supermarket anymore. I can just walk through because I have all this microchip stuff. And they never think of the real ramifications of it. After all, it's so arduous and such heavy labor to drag your billfold out of your pocket and use a regular debit card when you can just walk through and the barcode reader will read it. Well, okay. Certainly qualifies more than barcodes as a type, something set up for the mark of the beast. And we're willing to offer all this to the idolatry of convenience. So stop and think yourselves how many times you even radically inconvenience yourself for the sake of convenience. How much merchandise you buy because it touts how convenient it is, even when it's destructive to your health and to the health of the community, to the health of the groundwater, to the health of the earth, even when it might help contribute to seriously undermining the quality of life of your children and grandchildren. We'll offer all these things on the altar of convenience because we've made an idolatry out of convenience. Just think about it for a while. By the way, I want to suggest something too, that if we followed the numeric systems of the Jews, we'd probably conclude that the number of Jesus Christ was 777, which would be 3 times perfection. 666 would be something that seems almost like it, but is deficient in one point.